Could we see a huge multiplayer deal between the Senators and the Coyotes involving Jacob Chychrun? We'll discuss some possibilities and what the deals might look like. Plus, we have some more pretty significant signings, including players like Yamamoto and Muriel Ferraro. We'll discuss all the latest news and rumors coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As you can see, I'm still on the road. We're in a new location here now in Moncton, New Brunswick, traveling from Nova Scotia here today. That part of the vacation is now over. So what you see behind me, I know it's not the prettiest scenery, but it is a part of Moncton there behind me. We're only here for the night before we kick off the next part of vacation here coming up next week. Now, on to today's NHL news and rumors. We got a couple more significant signings in the RFA world. The Edmonton Oilers have come to terms and avoided salary arbitration. Yamamoto gets a $3.1 million deal for 2 years with the Oilers, so he'll still be an RFA with arbitration rights at the end of this contract. It'll be his last year before he's qualifying for unrestricted free agency. So, of course, the Edmonton Oilers are now way over the cap. They became, in a negative cap situation after they signed Jesse Puljujarvi. Now Yamamoto is signed. The good news here is that they do have a fairly big pool of LTIR money that they can use at the beginning of the NHL season to become cap compliant. They're just over $6 million over right now, but they also still have not signed RFA forward Ryan McLeod. Now, Ryan McLeod, I don't think is going to be in for a big payday. I would imagine he's probably going to get a short-term 1 or 2 year contract. He'll still be an RFA at the end of it. He's definitely going to get a raise, but I don't think it's going to be anything too crazy or substantial. So that'll probably put them anywhere from $7.5 million, something to that effect, likely over the cap by the time McLeod signs, sealed, and delivered. Now, their LTIR pool, what they have between Mike Smith and Oscar Klefbom, gives them about $6.3 million that they can go over. So that's still not enough there to jive. So they're not in a situation where they can go and just take the LTIR money and become cap compliant. Something is going to have to give. Now, of course, they could tweak their roster a little bit, but a lot of this, of course, right now is a little bit speculative because we don't know the contract yet for McLeod. So once that kicks in, unless it ends up being a little bit more than I'm expecting, so I'm going to say they're probably going to be somewhere in that 1 to 1.2 million range above what they can get through the LTIR. So they can change their roster a little bit. They do have, according to Cap Friendly right now, they have Philip Broberg listed as a 7th defenseman, so he could be demoted. They could put a player on the forward group through waivers, like somebody that would normally be like a 4th liner, or they could make a cost-cutting trade, which is many people in the NHL world are suspecting that they will go down that route, but who's it going to be and where are they going to go is a tough question. There's not a lot of teams that have the ability to take on money, especially unfavorable deals. I would imagine, if I had to guess, that the first choice for Ken Holland and the Oilers to move would be forward Warren Foegele. I don't know that they're going to be able to, but he came to Edmonton from Carolina in that trade for Ethan Bear. Wasn't really working out in Carolina, was looking for more of an opportunity. Hasn't really gotten it in Edmonton. Hasn't been a terrible fit, but at the same time, I still think that he leaves them wanting more a lot of the times, and he's one of the more expendable guys. So I wouldn't be shocked if that happens. They don't have to rush into this. They can take their time, see what's out there, and it's also possible that the Oilers too, because they've been linked to maybe bringing in another unrestricted free agent. If they were to do that, they'd have to free up even more money. They are one of the teams that were reportedly interested in Phil Kessel. Now, of course, we'll have to see what Phil decides to do. He's one of the bigger names left on the market. Of course, we've talked a lot about Nazem Kadri as of late, even though his deal's not official. Many believe it's 99.9% sure happening with the Islanders. So if we're assuming he's off the market for a moment here, there's not too many bigger names out there that are left at this point. Kadri and Klingberg drug on for some time. Kessel, Stastny, there's a few vets out there that likely get deals done here in the short term. And if they want to go after a guy like Phil, they're going to have to do a more significant deal, which I do wonder if a guy like Tyson Barrie would become more expendable at that point. So we'll have to see. The Oilers are definitely going to be an interesting team to watch here. We also got a deal for Muriel Ferraro in San Jose. He gets a 4-year contract, $3.25 million per season. It's not believed to be any trade protection in this deal. Ferraro will be a UFA at the earliest possible age. So he's completed his 3-year ELC, gets a 4-year extension. 7 years is what it takes to get the UFA status upon starting your NHL career. So the Sharks are taking a bit of a chance, not locking him up any longer than that. But at the same time, I think it's a situation where he's going to continue to grow. He's already a top 4 defenseman, played a lot with Brent Burns before, so I would suspect that he may play more with a guy like Erik Karlsson this year, but he's more than capable of being a top 4 minute muncher for sure. Not putting up a ton of offense. I think that part of his game can still grow. I still think that we can see more offensive instincts from him, but to me, for what he does and what he plays, I think this is a really, really good deal for the San Jose Sharks. And like I said, it takes a little bit of risk for them to walk him to free agency at the youngest possible age, and at the same time for him, it's good too. It allows him to continue to grow, and you know that he's going to want to be improving for when free agency comes around. Obviously, it gives him a chance to explore the market. He's going to want to be at the top of his game, and of course, with the direction the Sharks are going right now, it makes sense that he doesn't go there for too long to see how the direction of the team changes here over the next few years. Some former NHLers, or I guess, soon to be former NHLers, leaving the NHL to head to the Swiss League include former Dallas star Michael Raffl and former Vancouver Canuck Juho Lammiko. Both guys were unable to get NHL contracts for right now, and will be playing in the Swiss League next season. And we also seen that longtime pro hockey player Rich Clune has announced his retirement from the game. Of course, he did play some in the NHL the last number of years. He's playing with the Toronto Marlies in the American Hockey League. He's been a long time vet that kind of rode things out in the minors with the Marlies. Been a captain there, worked a lot with the younger players, and naturally it kind of makes sense. And this is not a huge surprise by any means, but a longtime veteran player with the Leafs organization retires, and it's not going to work for them, and he's going to be working in player development. So that certainly makes a ton of sense to me. He's already been kind of doing it in a sense, working with the younger guys at the AHL level the last number of years. He's signed a number of 1-year contracts. Has been a good pro, somebody who's obviously not afraid to drop the gloves, play the rough style of game, have the fights when necessary, stick up for his teammates, good leader, good character. So certainly like to wish him the best in retirement. Be interesting to see him in player development and what comes next for Rich Clune. There's still some more RFA cases, of course, to be decided, some which have arbitration rights. Miles Wood's another one for the New Jersey Devils that's getting ready to go to their arbitration hearing. We will see if they come to terms or not. They are a fair bit apart. Elliot Friedman's reporting that the player is seeking $3.9 million and the team is like around $2.8 million, so they're about $1 million apart. I'm a little bit surprised on Wood's number, to be honest, given the fact that he barely played last year. It was due to an injury and a major surgery that he had to go through. He's still young, he still has talent, he could still bounce back, but I would suspect that his long-term future probably isn't in New Jersey, and really a short-term deal here at best is probably going to spell his exit from the organization. But we'll see if they can come to terms here and kind of bridge the gap on their own, or if an arbitration hearing will indeed be becoming. Of course, the Predators and Yakov Trenin so far are the only team to fully go through the hearing, and we're still waiting on the award and decision on that to be fully announced and see what that contract is going to work out to be. Now, as I mentioned, could we see a significant deal between the Coyotes and the Senators? There's lots of speculation that the Sens are still chasing Jakob Chychrun. Many in the Ottawa area, including former Senator and current media member Mark Bethant, has talked about it on Twitter. Of course, he knows the player and the family a little bit and has made it well known through his Twitter feed, as well as through his podcast with Brent Wallace, that he knows that Chychrun would be quite happy and content to come and join the Ottawa Senators. Now, there's been some talk, though, recently that part of what might be holding up this deal is a couple of things. One, the deal may be expanded and involve way more pieces than was originally anticipated. Originally, it was like Chychrun coming to Ottawa in exchange for probably one or two younger players and a couple of picks, something to that effect. A good fair return for a young defenseman on a good long-term contract. But now there's some talk that it could actually involve other pieces. So that could be part of it. And the other part of it, of course, is Nikita Zaitsev, as his contract almost has to be included. And he does have some trade protection in his contract, and he may not be willing to do that, to waive and go to Arizona. So essentially, that could be a sticking point, and it might be something that we see delayed here a little bit. Now, the Ottawa Senators have some options if Zaitsev doesn't want to play ball and doesn't want to go. Apparently, he and Artem Zub, of course, the two young, well, not overly young, but they're two Russian defensemen, remained throughout the summer in Ottawa training and things, and Zaitsev seems to be quite happy there, which is, it's fine. It's good that he's happy there, but at the same time, it's clear to the fan base, and I think to the coaching staff and the management, that he doesn't really fit there any longer, and that they need to find a way to move on to improve that decor and that contract. Even though it was a 7-year deal originally signed with the Leafs, they acquired that in that big trade with the Leafs a number of years ago. We're down to the final 2 years, and a buyout, just the way things are structured, just was not really doable. So we'll have to see. If Zaitsev doesn't want to play ball, they could always put him through waivers and either have a deal in place that Arizona claims him, because he doesn't have a no-move clause. So if he's claimed through waivers, that's different than being traded. So they could work out a deal that way. That's kind of goes along with the trade, so to speak. So if we see Zaitsev on waivers, that could be a clue that a deal's getting close, in my opinion. And also, if that's not something that happens, then they could also bury him in the minors. They get a little bit of cap relief, and they can maybe see if they can work out a way to move on from him in the final year of the deal next year. But we'll have to see. Of course, Chychrun's a player that they seem to be very, very interested in. Can play both sides of the blue line. He's young, physical, has some offense to his game, and can certainly play those top 4 minutes. Of course, the risk that comes with Chychrun, and so far in his young career, he has had a tough time staying healthy. Some people have also warned that he hasn't been on a very good team. Maybe those numbers are, I guess, not exactly as accurate as you might think, what he could produce on a different team. But to me, if he can produce the offense he did with a weaker team that was near the bottom of the league, as this team in Ottawa continues to improve, and look at all the offensive players they've added and how they've improved over the past year, I would think that would not be an issue. But the bigger package of the trade here could be something like this. There's believed to be at least one other player in Arizona that the Coyotes would be willing to put in, that the Senators have interest in, and it very well could be Christian Fischer. Christian Fischer is a player who's mainly had a bottom six role in Arizona. Hasn't really worked out. I know when they drafted him, they kind of I'm sure had hoped that he'd be a more prominent player for them. He's been a decent player. I think they, good character guy. They like having him around, but he's not really, a big offensive threat by any means. But he is a player that Coach DJ Smith is quite familiar with. They did have one season together in Windsor in the Ontario Hockey League. In that year, Christian Fischer put up some wicked numbers. I believe he was a 40-goal guy and 90 to 100 points. So certainly a guy that DJ was formerly relied upon in a big role, familiar with, and could see how he might be able to, maybe bring some of that out of him here. Sometimes a fresh start and a change of scenery is all it takes to get things going and find that scoring touch that you used to have. So he could be certainly included in the deal. He's on a short-term deal, not a lot of money either. It's believed, like I said, Zaitsev would be one of the main pieces going to Arizona. Of course, that's not a value piece for the Coyotes. That's a cap dump in order to make the money work. It's believed they would likely get a first-round pick, probably a second pick that's going to be likely a second, like a first and a second. You're probably looking at a roster player, which I believe they'd have interest in Alex Formanton, who right now is unsigned. And at the same time, it could also include another prospect or two. You're looking at probably a D prospect, so either maybe Bernard Docker, Thompson, maybe a guy like Sokolov, like one of those guys in the American Hockey. They're looking at a couple of good prospects that might be in a 21, 22-year-old range, a couple of picks, and then maybe one more established NHL player. So it could really be quite substantial. Like if they took Zaitsev and say Formenton, a couple prospects and a couple picks, you could be looking at 5 or 6 assets on the Ottawa side going to the Coyotes, and a couple of players, and maybe a later round pick or something like that coming back to Ottawa the other way. It could actually grow into being a really potential substantial deal. Now I've seen some reports as well that the Coyotes would also be including or possibly willing to include Lawson Krause, who's still an unsigned RFA. I'm not entirely convinced that's the case. I think if the Senators were going to take another forward, another player in that deal, that Fisher is more likely. Krause is certainly the stronger player, but he's also a little bit older than, say, a guy like Formenton. He's going to cost a little bit more money as well, and I just don't know that they really need that type of player. I think Fisher could have a more solid bottom 6 role, where Krause is probably looking for more of a top 6 kind of opportunity here. So I think it just they already have a really deep top 6, a pretty deep top 9 too for the most part. If Formenton came out, Fisher could go in, kind of level things out, and they have some other prospects that could fill that role too. So we'll have to see how things go, but this is a deal that's still being kicked around. They're still chasing down, and it's going to kind of become more complex, more complicated, more pieces involved, and Zaitsev's contract to me is a big part of that, and they have some means that they could work around, including in the waiver wire. So the other thing, like I said, with the waivers, maybe what they could do is if they put him through waivers, maybe Arizona claims him and does a favor that way. They can work around it, and then they do the other pieces in a separate trade. That's also a possibility. You got to look for some creative ways to get around it sometimes when you have trade protection in there that's just blocking getting your deal done. So let me know your thoughts on a potential really big potential monster deal here between the Coyotes and the Senators, as well as the other signings here today, and let me know down in the comments your thoughts, and we'll discuss further. Of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.